When I was 34 years old, I made a change in my life that gave me so much freedom. It affected my relationships, my outlook on life, and even the way I approach homemaking. And so today, I want to share with you what that change was, specifically related to homemaking. So as I chat with you, I'll be decluttering some problem cupboards here in my kitchen, and then also setting up some new patio furniture that was generously gifted to my family. And then also, finally, I'll be sharing a family favorite dinner that you will want to try too. Thank you for stopping by and joining me in this week's video. For the first 34 years of my life, I didn't really pay attention to my thoughts. But during a challenging season, I started noticing the words that were constantly swirling around in my head and the conversations that I was having with myself. And it was during that time that I realized something life-changing. I realized I am not in control of everything, but I am in control of my thoughts and my attitude. And up until that point, I had placed so much emphasis on the things that I did, being productive, doing things well, just getting things quote unquote right. But I had largely ignored the way that I was thinking. I would replay past failures and I would dwell on things that people said to me or about me. And I would just let those words take root and define how I saw myself. So when I got married almost 18 years ago, I didn't really know how to cook. And a lot of my meals just were not great. I kind of joke about it, but the fire alarm went off more times that first year in our marriage just because I didn't know how to cook. And sometimes if I would bring something to like a potluck or some like gathering, people would make comments about my food and maybe they didn't actually mean anything by it, but I would take it to heart and I started labeling myself as just a bad cook. And I carried that with me for a good while. But here's what I didn't realize at the time. It wasn't just that the meals were the problem. It was the way I was thinking about myself. I was speaking to myself in a way that was hurtful rather than helpful. And I was just letting those thoughts run unchecked in my mind. But when I started paying attention to my thoughts, that's when my life started changing. And it wasn't overnight. It was just slowly becoming more aware of the things that I was saying to myself and the words that I was allowing to run with in my mind. So I stopped just agreeing with every negative thought that came into my mind. And I started asking myself, is this actually true? And this verse really guided me through during this time. And it was 2 Corinthians 10:5, which says, take every thought captive to obey Christ. That became very real in my life at that time because not every thought that enters my mind deserves to stay there. So I started taking these thoughts captive and not letting them run wild in my mind. And I began replacing those thoughts. So instead of saying, I'm a bad cook, I would think, I'm learning how to become better one meal at a time. And instead of replaying something embarrassing, I would redirect my mind to what is true, what is good, and what is worth dwelling on. Philippians 4:8 tells us, whatever is true, whatever is honorable or just, pure, lovely, commendable, think about these things. And this shift really changed how I felt internally, and it changed how I showed up in my home. I stopped thinking so much about myself and my failures and my shortcomings, and instead I began meditating on Christ more and thinking about others beyond myself and the family that I was serving and the people that were coming into my home and the people that I interact with outside of my home. And homemaking stopped feeling like this constant reminder of what I wasn't good at. And instead, it started becoming a place where I could grow and I could learn and I could serve with joy. This affected even something as simple as decluttering a cupboard. So instead of thinking, why do I always let it get this bad? I started thinking, I'm thankful I can take care of this today. And that is a completely different experience than where I was before. I'm really grateful to Costway for gifting me this patio set that the kids and I are going to put together. One of the things I'm very thankful for about our home is our back deck, but we really haven't been using it as well as we'd like to. So this year we had been in search of some seating and a table, and Costway reached out and asked if I would like to share this set with you in my video, and I said yes. So the kids helped me set this up, and I always want to be real with you, so I will share what we like about it, and then also just a couple of things to keep in mind that we were a little bit surprised about when it came. So this table is super sturdy. It's solid, which is exactly what we wanted. We have heavy winds here in Nebraska, and we didn't want a glass tabletop that could blow over and possibly break, because that has happened to us before. So this table was great. It was what we were looking for. This set did take about 3 hours to put together, spread out over a few days, but the directions were easy to follow and I didn't have any trouble putting it together, mostly by myself. It just was a lot of work, but it was totally worth it. And there was a small scent on the furniture when we took it out of the boxes. It was nothing bad. It actually reminded me of the perfume that my aunt wears, but it did go away eventually after just sitting out and airing out on our back deck. So it's nothing major, but it is something to be aware of. I was also just a little bit surprised at the size of the furniture. It was smaller than I had expected. However, the more that we use it, I feel like it's just fine. It was just my expectations were a little bit bigger. And even my 6'5" husband has been used to sitting in it, and he says he likes it. So it still works for him. And he's a pretty tall guy. This spring, our weather has been up and down, but each warm day that we have had, my family has been able to sit out here and enjoy the patio set. And we even did some homeschooling out here one morning. Even though it was a little chilly, we did have to bring our blankets, but it was so fun. The kids enjoyed it so much. And we're just looking forward to many more evenings out here enjoying this space together as a family. So I will leave a link below to Costway's furniture and also a 10% off code if you would like to use them for a patio set or any other furniture that they have on their website. But thank you to Costway for giving me this furniture, and thank you to you for allowing me to share this with you in my video. And now let's make a delicious dinner. This is a new recipe that I tried recently. It's actually the 4th time that I've made it, and it's a stromboli recipe, although I believe a true stromboli is filled with deli meats and slices of cheese, and the ones that I make for my family are filled with some of our favorite pizza toppings instead. So I'm going to use sausage and pepperoni and green peppers in this particular evening. But every time that I have made this recipe, my family loves it. My husband says it's so good that I should open up a restaurant and sell it. Every time he eats it, he's like, oh, I just love it. Which to me, it's just so funny because especially thinking about our discussion at the beginning of this video and how bad my cooking skills were when we first got married. But you can definitely tell that I have improved. Thank the Lord for that. But really, I believe that this recipe is just really good, the one that I follow, and it's not necessarily my cooking. The garlic butter on the pizza crust, both inside and then outside of the stromboli, I believe makes all the difference. And I also add a lot of shredded mozzarella cheese, so it's super cheesy. I did make my pizza dough and my marinara sauce from scratch because I just like to know what goes in the ingredients. I also feel like I save money that way instead of buying them pre-made. And I don't have a recipe for the marinara sauce. I just add seasonings and a little bit of sugar and salt just to give it a little bit of a sweet flavor. But the dough I do have a recipe for, so I will link that along with the stromboli recipe for you. But you could also just make this way easier on yourself and use a pre-made pizza dough and jarred marinara sauce and shredded mozzarella. And that could save you, extra time. I know some nights you just need something simple but delicious and you don't necessarily have a bunch of time or energy. And this could be one of those meals that you could do. Like I said, I don't have an actual recipe for the marinara sauce. I just use a can of tomato sauce and then I add in whatever seasonings I have on hand, which I did share in my last video what I have. So I use onion powder and garlic powder and then Italian seasoning. I usually have some parsley and oregano. And then I also always add just a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar as well. My husband really likes a sweeter sauce, so I usually sweeten it up. I could go either way, and then I just taste it and see if it needs a little more of any seasonings. But that's pretty simple, and I will try to come up with some kind of a recipe where I can actually write it out for you, all the measurements. But if you want to just give it a whirl, then give it a try and see if you can come up with one that your family likes. I served this with cut up carrots and mini cucumbers with hummus on the side to balance out the meal. And then we also like to dip our stromboli in a little bit of marinara sauce. It's so good that way. So as I finish assembling dinner, I just want to encourage you to pay attention to your thoughts, especially as you go about your homemaking tasks. Remember to take those thoughts captive and remind yourself of truth. Because the words that you say to yourself matter. They can either keep you stuck or they can help move you forward. And for me, it took me 34 years to learn that. I'll leave links below to the patio furniture and the recipes. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week.